Welcome to an all-new Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell. As always, I'm your host, H.D. Campbell. Today, before we get into the show, I want to introduce our brand new sponsor. It's Senior and Living Today. Senior and Living Today was founded by my friend Courtney Jones, who wanted to put together a company to help seniors as they live beyond their golden years and just make life just comfortable. She started by writing this book, The Living Legacy Planner. Living Legacy Planner is a book. It's actually a journal. We always talk about getting insurance, as we should, for afterwards. We always talk about putting together a will, as we should, for after we die. But a lot of times we're going to be here in the extra 20, 30 years. So we need to start thinking about things happening while we're still here. Like, what if we're accidentally disabled to the point where we can't talk? And the family sometimes don't always get facts right. What this planner does, this planner again is a journal where you put in, it has simple questions. What are you allergic to? What are your food preferences? What do you like to watch on television? Things like that. Or, or more importantly, your medicines, um, things that you don't want to eat, things that you don't like to drink. It's a journal for when your family or your caretaker comes in. They can read this journal and they can actually see what your needs are without having to play any guesswork because it's all there. And I'm going to get into more details with it later. But the journal is actually, this planner is actually a great resource. And I'm suggesting everyone get a copy for their loved ones or for themselves. Because again, you never know. Things can happen. This is just as important as getting insurance or will. And now on to the author's corner. Today, again, I have two all-new authors. She's the thriller mistress. She's also written a couple of children's books. We're going to get into all that in today's interview. Next, I want to talk to you about James W. Price. James W. Price is a cool brother. I enjoy talking to this brother. We talked his young adult fantasy novel, Lori the Protector. We've talked about female pirates, which you better get that book out here soon. We also talked about a lot of history in his life and what drove him to be the author that he is. So we're going to get into that as well. So after this break, we're going to start the ball off with thriller mistress Ginny Davis.
Do you feel like a relative might be starting to forget things? Well, this is the time to write down everything that is important to them. What if they were temporarily disabled by an accident, stroke, or surgery? At some point, a caregiver may need to come in. Would you want them to have a voice and remain in control while providing them with their likes and wishes? The Living Legacy Planner is what you need. Document their instructions, do it now, make a plan to plan with the Living Legacy Planner. It's available right now on Amazon.
Ginny Davis, the thriller mistress, who also writes children's books. I had a great time talking to her. I love the stories that drove her book, actually both genres. But when she gets into that thriller writing, man, oh man, you just got to hear the interview. Welcome back to the Author's Corner. I'm here with author Ginny Davis. I see her on TikTok all the time. And if you check out her TikTok page, she's always promoting. And I finally had to get on the show, and here she is. So, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I want to talk to you about your books, not your everyday tales as well as your other titles. But first, I always like to start at the beginning. Everyone has an origin story. What? So what got you into writing, and what started you on your journey?
So I always knew I wanted to write. I knew when I was like a kid, like I was 11 years old and I was writing, and I always thought that was what I wanted to do. But you know, I think that other people were like, well, you got to be able to support yourself, make a living. So is writing going to be that thing that you can do? So I got talked out of it and got, guided towards a more acceptable or mainstream career. And one day I had an idea for a story and I wrote it and I just was like, wow. And it actually, the first story that I wrote that was published is actually a children's book. And I let it sit. I would think about it from time to time, but I let it sit for like 10 years. And people kept encouraging me and saying you should do it, you should publish. And I just was like, I have no idea how to do this. And I wound up during that time I wound up getting married, and I married into a family of artists. So I was able to find an illustrator, and my husband's niece, she's my niece now too, love her to death. And so she illustrated my first book. Actually, she's done the illustrations for all of my books. And she's just amazing. So when I got her involved, I'm like, you know what? I've got somebody else involved here. I can't just let this sit, because she's put her hard work into it too. And I was able to make contact with a publisher, and she was like, just very real with me, like, what's holding you up? What's the problem? What's going on? Tell me about the story. And I told her, and she was like, so what is it? What's going on? She was like, if it wasn't good, I would tell you it's not good, but this is good. And from then on, I was off and running. So my first two books are children's story. It's a children's book series called it's the first book is called Ben and the Butterfly. It's about a little boy named Ben who is visually impaired, and he's learning the world without sight, learning colors, learning about animals. And so, yeah, that's what it's about. Yeah. And then I went on to my passion, which is horror thriller. So, and I wrote my first novel. I think it's been almost 3 years ago, and that was The Oaks on the Glen, a story about a haunted apartment complex, and it's kind of based loosely on some true events that happened to me. Yeah, so that was my origin story.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna tell you where you made the first mistake. You married into a family of artists. There was no way that book was gonna sit on the shelf.
No,
You had too many motivators
that's
now that's gonna put, hey, what's that book doing over there?
that's right.
See, that was
That's
your first mistake.
that's right. That's
so
right.
so now that you have your first book. So let's go into let's go into publishing for a minute. What was your road to publishing your first title?
So it happened really organically. I was sitting there, sitting on the couch thinking I really need to get this book published. And I was on Facebook, and a woman who is a book coach, her information popped up on my page. And so I was like, okay, well, this is, fate. This is a sign. So I reached out to her, and she was actually the one that gave me the push and kicked me in the tail and said, you need to publish this book. And she was, she took care of everything. She did the editing, the publishing for me. She told me what changes I needed to make. And for that first book, she was like, there's not really much for that needs to be done here, just a couple of editing things. And then we were off and running. So yeah, it's been a great experience with her. She's been very helpful. And even when just have questions, I can just go to her and say, hey, what do you think about this or that? And it's been a really great relationship. It's turned into a sistership, and I'm really appreciative of it.
Okay. Let's talk about your children's books for a second.
Mhm.
What Well, actually, let's talk about your first children's book, Ben and the Butterfly. What
Mhm.
inspired that?
You know that the idea came to me in a dream. I actually, I think part of it was, well, I really can't say. Um, it came to me in a dream. I don't know if I was watching something on TV and fell asleep and just was thinking, well, how do visually impaired children identify colors? How do they figure that out? And I came up with the idea, associating colors with foods, with things that you taste. So red for strawberry, um, and brown for chocolate, blue for blueberry, and so forth. So that kind of thing. And yeah, and once I had that idea in there, I just went with it. Yeah.
Also, I love that. Then you went on and wrote Ben and the Farm,
Yes.
which, and then so how do we get from there to there?
So I thought about visually impaired children and what would they like to do in their day to day? What do normal kids do, or not normal kids, but what do seeing kids do? What do they do? And Ben lives on a farm. The farm he lives on has no animals, but the farm next door to him does. And he's a very curious young man and he wants to know about animals. So, what better way to find out about animals than to go to the neighboring farm and use that sense of touch and smell and hearing to identify animals? So, yeah, that was the second book.
I'm going to ask a question. Are you a teacher or that is just beautiful. I mean, it's
Thank
just
you.
you just love children. I just feel like
I
you just
do.
love children.
I do.
You're getting children to visualize
Yes. Yeah.
what they're reading,
Right.
even if they can't see. They're trying to
Right.
visualize.
Exactly. Yeah. Having a descriptor. And also the point of the book, the main point of the book is no matter, how you feel about yourself, you can do anything. You can do anything. Here's someone who doesn't have his sight, but he's wanting to learn as much as he possibly can. And I think that all children should be taught that. Don't have limitations put on you. Whatever you want to learn in life, go forward and learn that. So yeah.
So I love that. And how's the book being embraced so far? Both
So
books, actually.
people love the books. They love it. They feel it's a heartwarming story. They love the illustrations. So and the story itself, I always get that is such a sweet story. Whenever anybody reads it. So it's been embraced really well, I feel. Yeah.
See, I love that. I love that. So so now now I want to switch gears for a second. How did we go from transition to children's books to thriller books?
So Um, I love horror. I love thriller movies and books. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, or I should say, I'm still
Hey, go
I'm
ahead. Go ahead.
I'm still a Stephen King fan, but I've branched out a little bit more. What happened was I moved into this apartment complex. I was by myself. Me and my sister had lived together for some time, and then we moved into our own separate apartments and just weird things were happening, like um I would put something somewhere and it would disappear. And yeah, and my cell reception, my internet reception was awful, awful. And people would call me and I wouldn't get the calls. I wound up having to get a landline so that people could actually call me, and so I wouldn't use my cell phone. Probably one of the scariest things that happened, and this is in the book, is one night after I'd been sitting on the couch watching TV and I went to bed. I got back up in the morning and the front door was wide open. Yeah. And the door has two locks. And when I was in the living room sitting on the couch, the door is like right to my left. I can see it. So it wasn't open. And as far as I know, it was locked. And my sister was like, we're from Detroit. She was like, you locked that door. I know you locked that door. So getting up in the morning and finding it wide open was like, okay. And in the situation, I was in a very compromising situation. I'm like, I can't go anywhere except outside, and I'm not dressed to go outside.
Right.
So I have to go back into this apartment and find out if there's anybody else in here. And there wasn't. So it just was like, what happened? How did this happen? So there was a lot of strange stuff, a lot of strange things going on with the neighbors. And yeah, so I had enough material to write a book about it. Yeah.
Now, now I know some other life events happen, but what before we even get to the book, did you ever leave? What? Hopefully, you left.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm going to say what motivated. What? Okay, I'm not trying to get too personal, but what motivated you to leave?
A couple of
To
things.
finally leave, I
To
mean.
finally, things calmed down at the end. Things really did calm down. And I felt like part of the reason this was happening was because I was not happy. And sometimes I feel like when you're not happy, you can draw in dark things around you. And but I my sister was really helpful in that. She was like, we're gonna pray, and she brought me over a Bible, and I would read it, and we'd pray and do that kind of thing. And but also too, I changed myself. I made a realization that I wasn't happy and I needed to change myself in my life. And then I met I met my husband, we fell in love, and he was the main motivator. He bought a house. So I'm like, well, I don't need to be here. I can I can move.
Exactly.
So
See
um
ya.
yeah, that's it. But yeah, by then things are pretty much, I think one or two other things happened, and by then I was like, I'm moving out. I don't have to worry about it. So yeah, but I was
Yeah.
definitely motivated to get out.
See, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so, what's the name of the book again?
This book is called The Oaks on the Glen.
So you have a lot of those elements in there.
Mhm.
How much of you is in the books?
So the main character is based on me. Her name is Dina. So I would say quite a bit of it is quite a bit of the element is based on me. And she has my mannerisms and my, thought process. And I will admit there were some things that Dina did in the book that I did in real life where I was like, I shouldn't have done that. I should have just, you know, left things alone as instead of like investigating and trying to figure out what was going on. I should have just been like, it's none of my business. I'm just going to stay here and not get involved. So, but yeah, I was not, yeah. But hey, that's lessons learned. I know what to do going forward. So,
Oh, okay.
mhm.
Not okay. No, not your everyday tale like this.
Yes, not your everyday tales. So, not your everyday tales came about from a lot of different things. I had started a few short stories, and I was working on a few of them and finishing them up. But not your everyday tales was born during COVID, and we were seeing a lot of different things happening during COVID. And I think the one polarizing incident that happened that made me feel like I need to jump in here and work on a story that I already had started was the overturning of Roe versus Wade. That was such a huge thing to happen. And I felt like it needed to be talked about. And a lot of there are 5 short stories in Not Your Everyday Tales. And each of them are based on events that were happening in the real world during COVID. The story that sticks with me the most, man, that's horrible. Hold on. I can't remember the stories. That's why I have the book here. Can't remember the name. Um, the story that probably sticks with me the most because we heard so much about child trafficking and how much that I'm sure we knew that was always going on, but it just seemed like it was so much more in the news during that time. And
More brought up on the forefront, right?
right. So I wrote a story about that, and it kind of ties in a few things that were going on, like road rage, carjackings, and child trafficking. So that story is Raging Roads, and I love this story because it's about Black people in a situation doing what's right and trying to right what's wrong. So, um, and I'm actually incorporating that story into the second volume of Not Your Everyday Tales. But yeah, I enjoyed writing it because it was my way of taking control. I think when writers feel so out of control, they use their writing to bring it back into control, to control their environment, or control, at least try to make the story have a better ending, or maybe not. Or maybe not. So yeah.
That's no problem. So actually, you actually sort of brought up what's going to be my next question is, when you're writing, what type of routine or what kind of zone are you in?
Man, it depends. Some days if I get an idea and I'm like, okay, I got to get this down now, I can just sit down and just plot out the idea, and maybe it'll take me 5 or 10 minutes and I'm done. But some days I might be working on a story and I just zone out and I'm in that story for 2, 3, 4 hours. And it just depends on what state of mind I'm in, or how the story is pouring out to me. And yeah, it's really I'd like to say it's a process, but it's different um for me, and it just depends on what my goal is. If I wake up and I say, okay, I'm going to write 1,000 words today, then I'll get up and work and try to write 1,000 words and end up with 3,000. And and then I'll pull myself out and it's like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. What happened? And the sun's down. What happened? So
Been there.
yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, first, where can we buy your books?
All of my books are on Amazon. There are links to my books on my website, which is booksbyjennydavis.com. And but yeah, they're available mostly on Amazon and Kindle. Yeah. I think The Oaks on the Glen is available and Books a Million and Barnes and Noble, and I think Walmart too. So that one you can find, and so are the Ben and the Butterfly books. You can find those pretty much anywhere online, virtually. But yeah, physical copies, I'm still working on that part. So to get those in the
Yeah,
stores.
that's no problem. So, how can we as your fans and your readers get to know you as an author?
I would say TikTok. TikTok is the best place to reach me. Um, you you can always email me as well too. My email address is on my website, and what else? I'm on Facebook too, but not as much as I'm on TikTok. And yeah, all my socials are on my website as well. And I think you can also uh, sign up as a member as a member to the website. I don't know if I'm going to do a newsletter yet. I'm kind of pondering that, maybe doing something quarterly for a newsletter, especially now that, Halloween is right around the corner and that's my season. So, yeah, maybe doing something once or twice a year just to get people to know what I'm doing, what's going on with me.
Okay. So, what's next? What's in the future? Any new titles coming up?
Yes, so I am working on Not Your Everyday Tales Volume 2. I'm finishing that up. And I have enough material to do a part 3. So
Hmm.
I don't know what I'm going to do after that. I do have another story, a science fiction kind of story, but what I've been hearing a lot of is that people want a part 2 to The Oaks on the Glen. They want to know what's going to happen. And
You
I'm
gotta
like,
give them what they want.
yeah. So I'm like, well, I can make that happen. I can make that happen. So that might be what's next.
What motivates you to do your little trailers on? I love when we do trailers on TikTok. What motivates yours?
So I just get that idea. Sometimes I'll have an idea in my head of what I want it to look like, and I can find like the visuals and how the videos to incorporate on other sites that provide that material and just mix it in with my graphics. And, I like to keep it fun, but I like to keep it, fun but scary, a little fun but a little thrilling. And so that's what I strive for. And so I like to have a lot of fun with that. And I think people enjoy it. I get a lot of giggles, but they're like, I'm laughing, but really? Like, where is this going?
If
So
you see me doing a bunch of likes, that's why. That's why. So that's pretty cool. Now, my next question is, what do you like to do when you're not writing?
wow. I read a lot. I read a lot. I love to travel. I love hanging out with my husband, and I'm a family oriented person. I don't have kids, but I love kids. So I'm like I said, I'm married into a family that has a lot of artists and a lot of kids, and they're just awesome. I love. I have a large family too, and I have a lot of younger cousins, and just watching them grow up and just getting to know them, and I love that. So but yeah, I love to read, and my passion lately, because I know I told you I love Stephen King. I've been reading a lot more indie authors now, and I'm like, you guys are scarier than Stephen King. So I just want to put that out there that y'all are really scary.
I love it. I love it. So this is part of the show. Wow. Oh man. I went through all my questions. This is pretty
Really?
cool. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Oh, that's okay. I'm gonna make up some knowledge.
Okay.
No. So actually this is part of the show where I always give my authors the final word. You can give advice, you can give shout outs, you say whatever you want, the floor is yours.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I guess I just want to say I'm thankful to everybody who's been a part of this journey. I'm very thankful for the people that I've met along the way, especially including you, HD. I appreciate you reaching out to me. It's been an amazing experience. And I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. I'm looking forward to possibly writing screenplays. I want to learn how to do that. And I'm the type of person where as long as I'm learning, I'm happy. I'm joyful in that, just learning the next thing, the next step. So to me, I'm like, well, I guess writing screenplays would be next. So I'm happy about that. And I guess the message I want to say to anybody and everybody that's out there, because I hear all the time people are like, I want to write a book, I want to do this. And what I want to say to them is do it, do it. Don't wait. I waited. Don't wait. Do it now. And there's so many resources out there, and I'm happy to, point anybody in the right direction or give advice if needed. Because yeah, it's a big thing to try to wrap your arms around and try to say to yourself, I can do this. And don't feel like, oh well, these authors that are published, they just got it. They know no, we struggle every day we have that self-doubt. There's like, what am I doing? Do people really like this? Every day. So it's not like I'm just out here writing. I'm no, it's like, wow, what am I doing? And am I really gonna do this? And so yeah, it's always that self struggle that we're having. But I say if you have a story to tell it. There's this young man on Facebook who wrote a story about children that have vitiligo. And I'm like, that is so amazing because there are children out there, who have this condition, adults that have this condition. And to have a book out there where they can see it and it looks like them, I'm like, that is such a wonderful thing. So, and that's why I say, if you have a story, write it. There's somebody who will identify with that story.
And again, if you go to booksbyginny.com, you can buy her books, get to know her. And again, when she decides to put together a newsletter, you'll be the first to know. All you have to do is register. Now, also, too, you can buy her books at Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, as well as other resources, Walmart, and other places. So, but when we come back, we're going to talk to James Wesley Price. We're going to talk about books, future pirate novels, and a lot of the history that drove him to be the author he is. Stay tuned.
Do you have a relative that is independent and lives alone? What if they were temporarily disabled by an accident or surgery? At some point, someone may need to come in to provide care. Would you want them to have a voice and remain in control while providing them with their likes and wishes? Well, this is the time to write down everything that is important to them. The Living Legacy Planner is what you need. Document their instructions. Do it now. Make a plan to plan with the Living Legacy Planner. It's available right now on Amazon.
Those who don't know the history are doomed to repeat it. Listening and interviewing James W. Price has taught me a lot about what drives me as an author. Because a lot of times you don't realize it's your past that drives what you write. And he talks about how strong his mother was, so that's how come he writes strong female characters. It's just a lot of different elements to his writing, which led to his first book, young adult novel, Zoe the Protector. So I'm going to be quiet and let you hear the interview.
I've always written, like all my life, but I wrote strictly for my own enjoyment. You know, it was like an escapism, you know. I wasn't very personable as a child, you know, I was very shy and withdrawn. So I kind of went into my own little world, and I would write stories, create characters, and just kind of got lost in them. And it wasn't until several years ago I was introduced to Leslie Banks. Have you heard of her?
Yes.
Yeah. I read one of her books and just got totally captivated in it, mainly because I had always been reading white writers, like Stephen King, Laurel Hamilton. And here was this incredible Black woman who's writing stories that was just mind-blowing, And I had never been much of a fanboy, but then I found out that she had this little following, and I would just sit in and kind of just listen to them. It was mostly all women, and I would just sit in and listen to them. And then one day I jumped in, and things kind of blew up. They had a male perspective all of a sudden, and all of a sudden, I was the target for all of their frustrations and everything, But I met a couple of writers there, and they were amateurs like myself, but they had published. And for the first time, I realized that I could be published, and it became a dream. And Leslie, bless her soul, took an interest in me, and she encouraged me. She kind of mentored me a bit, and so I started writing, and the more I write, I saw myself improving a little bit, and decided to go for it, and see if I could be published.
And from there, how do we get from you writing to going for it to finally getting your first book published?
Yeah, how do we go from there? I was on Facebook a lot, and like I said, I listen to I read other authors' comments and editors, and a couple of editors kind of piqued my interest, and I gave them a premise of my story, Zoe's story, and I was super surprised at how many people just kind of jumped at it. They wanted to. They wanted to publish. They thought it was a great idea. And so I went with this one particular editor, And she promised me all these things, to get me published, and she lived up to it. She followed through on everything, and it was like she had the same mindset that I did, especially even when it came to the cover. I told her exactly what I wanted, and it was like she looked into my head and said, "We can do that." And with the first try, she got exactly what I wanted. So I was very happy with that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, what was your first book?
My very first book, I'm sorry to say, well, I'm not sorry. I take that back. My first book was called Black Tiger, and it was about a female pirate, a female black pirate.
Hmm.
And I thought the story itself was unique and different. And but unfortunately, I went with the wrong editor. They did like a butcher job on it. But I didn't see that until after the book was published, and because I didn't even get a copy of it. Yeah. So when I finally did see it, it took me like 4 pages, and I was so disgusted with it, so embarrassed by it, that I was ready to just give up on writing. I said, if it's always going to be like this, then I don't want to do it. But I'm going to have it republished. I'm going to have it redone because, like I said, I think it's a great story. I love the characters in it, and I wanted to give it another chance. So my very first book was uh, Black Tiger, and I'm going to have it redone again.
Okay.
So the second try here with Zoe, the second try here, uh, I'm very very pleased with it. Um, and the editor worked hard with me on it, and we're both excited about it coming out.
So before I get into Zoe just for a second, I'm going to go back where you were talking about the first book that, about the black. We don't have a lot of stories about black female. We don't have any story about black female pirates. And my thing is, well, I love when we can write unique books outside of the norm.
Yeah.
So I got to say you got to do something with that at some point because but I hear what black female pirates. Have I ever read any books about black female pirates? No. See, now I'm intrigued. See, you don't you see this is nothing. This let me give you another rule about the office corner. You do not tease me with books that you have not written yet, that is not out yet, that I can't read. See, that's a rule.
It's funny that you said that because I saw my late wife. My late wife got me intrigued with the Pirates of the Caribbean. She was a big Pirates of the Caribbean fan, and I saw it, and I have to admit I was blown away by it. Especially the main character, and I got to thinking, I haven't seen any black pirates, black captains actually.
Right.
And I thought, well, what if we made it a female character, a female black pirate? And I thought on it and I thought on it, and I came up with this whole concept, with this black girl, black African girl. Her village is attacked by white slavers. Her entire village is wiped out except for her. They left her for dead. And she, when she recovers, she sees the last longship going to the pirate ship, and basically she becomes a stowaway in it. And but she's eventually found, and she's thrown into to the bottom of the ship, where she is basically made a slave to the other pirates. So all coming of age, she's been abused and raped and everything that a human being could go through. But she had one friend that was a pirate, and he basically taught her everything that it was to be as a pirate, and taught her how to sword fight and everything. So, as a late teen, oh, also, I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. Also, down in the bottom of the ship, they have these exotic animals that they sell over in Europe, and one of the animals is a tiger, a mother and a cub, and she gets very friendly with them, and basically make them her pets, and they obey her every command. So when she gets of age, when she's like 18 or 19, she decides she's going to take over the ship. And basically the rule was if you can beat the captain, then the others will follow you. But there's also the rule that women are bad luck, on the pirate ship. Yeah. So she has all this to conquer. But basically, her and the tiger, they take over the ship. She kills the captain and she takes over the ship. So and she is like so ruthless. She is so fierce because she knows that's how she has to be. So it's just her and her friend that had helped her gain these abilities. They take over the ship, and anyone that challenged her, she immediately do away with them. So now she's got the ship and she's got her crew, and they basically just rule the seven seas, and she become known as well, she names the ship the Black Tiger after the tiger that she befriended, and she's basically she's even more ruthless than Blackbeard because everybody fears her, and every navy nation, uh, uh, a naval state, every naval nation is out to get her. So she's sailing the seven seas and she's blowing up naval ships, that she comes
Oh
across.
wow!
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's a great story. Simply because I love the idea of her being so emancipated. She's so ruthless. She has to be so ruthless and so uh, uh, bloodthirsty. That's the only way that she could survive. You know, so basically, the story is all about her travels and what she has to do to stay on top. You know, so like I said, I think it's a great story, and I'm going to have it redone again.
And then the fact that she's female, a lot of people underestimate her, and that's where they basically meet their doom as well. So I love that concept. You've got to get that one done.
Yeah, not just that she's a female; she's a Black female. I mean,
even worse. Yep.
yeah, because
So she definitely underestimated.
back in those times, if you were Black, you were subservient. You know, and the idea that, and especially being a woman, a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it can't. It's so like every naval officer that came across her were just so, they just couldn't fathom a Black captain, a Black female captain with such a reputation. So right off, they're misjudging her. They don't think that she's as bad as she thinks. They think the reputation is just that it was made up, that she's fictional. So, she proves it. She's like I said, she doesn't give quarter. She doesn't uh, uh, give them a chance to prove that she's not what she's supposed to be, you know. So, like I said, I think it's a great story. I'm going to have it redone again, and we'll see what happens.
I'm going to be interviewing you on that book coming soon. Please get that done. Seriously, you've got to get that one done. I don't really ask much for favors now from the people I interview, but you got to get that one done.
Okay, I will do. I will do.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So now my next question for you is, had a few bumps in the road along the way. Let's get back to Zoe. How did we finally get to our book Zoe finally published?
Believe it or not, Zoe started out as, I wanted it to be a child book, you know, like a Black Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, you know.
Like that.
But I have such a twisted mind, you know. I started out with good intentions, but you know,
I'm gonna stop you just for a second. That's it. You know what we call it twisted mind, but you may call it, but we all just call it being authors, because basically we'll have a concept we'll start off with, and then our mind starts working. It's like, what? By the time we're done, what did I just do? What did I just write? But go ahead.
Exactly. So so basically, I just went as far out as I could go. I just went, you know how you're writing and you start with what if, or how far can I push this, and I threw everything in this book except the kitchen sink, and at first I thought I went too far. I thought I went too far. It'd be just too unbelievable. But after tweaking it a little bit and made it both a human interest story as well as a paranormal story, I think I balanced it out a little bit. So when my editor read the premise, she just fell in love with it, period. She just thought it was great, and she thought the characters in it were great, especially the relationship between Zoe and her Uncle Jack. And her Uncle Jack is a character all by himself, and so not to give too much away, it's a family story. It's a family, it's very, I like to see Black families that stick together and work together, which is basically how my family was. I was a military brat, and so I was, my family was different. It was strange, My mother was like the Black Mrs. Cleaver,
Wow, that's cool.
And, it's like everywhere we went, wherever we went, we were always like the only Black family at the post. My dad was Navy, so we were like the only Black family in the post. But any given day, our yard would be filled with kids because everybody knew that on Wednesdays, even though my mother worked as a nurse, every Wednesday my mother made fresh chocolate chip cookies. And the whole neighborhood would be there,
And that would have been at your house as a kid.
And my dad was basically a big kid himself, so he'd be out there playing ball with all of us. So we were the go-to family, you know. And my mother always taught us that if you have nobody, there's nobody else in the world except your family, your immediate family. You take care of each other. You look out for each other. And that's how we was raised. So we were always close, always uh, uh, you wouldn't see one without the other. And since I was the oldest, my mother kind of baptized me as the caregiver of everybody, you know. But that's that's how it was, and that's how I try to show it in the book, in the story, that even though we're separated like we are now, we're all over the country. But whenever there's a crisis, whenever there's a family crisis, we'd be right there. You can always count on us being right there for each other, and that's the way it is in Zoe's story. It's of course, you know, they don't have monsters coming to the town, you know, but
But
you know,
still,
yeah. But you know, Zoe knew she could count on her family. They would help her, you know. So it's like I said, it's I try to put a little bit of everything in there. You know, the family love, the family togetherness, no matter what the obstacles are. And then Zoe herself, who is, you know, she's just a little girl, but she loves her town. She loves her school friends, and with them and the family in danger, she's going to do whatever she has to do to make sure everybody's safe.
okay. See, I love that. Yeah, don't give no more away. I love that. But you know what, though? One thing I did want to talk about that you said a second ago, especially being African American authors, Black authors, we never talk about family units being close. There's always drama in family. Families never coming together. Not only written a great young adult fantasy book, you're also putting elements of family in there, which is very rare, which is stuff we need to read right now.
Well, I was I was very naive coming up in school. Uh, the few Black friends that I had in school, their families were nothing like my family. You know, I mean, uh, usually it was so cliche. The fathers are rarely home, or they were drunk and abusive. And when I saw these things, it bothered me so bad because I couldn't understand why other families weren't like my family, you know. And so and to this day, we're still close. And everybody has their own family, but there's still that love and togetherness in that family. So like I said, I was so naive, I couldn't understand why every Black family wasn't like our family. You know, I couldn't understand how so many children wanted to get away from their main families as far away and as fast as possible, and why there wasn't the kind of love that we had in ours. So I try to make it a point that in this story that there's love. I mean, there'll be bickering. There's always bickering, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
but that's all it is bickering because everybody had each other's back. You know, there was that love still came through. You know, so I try to emphasize that in the story. You know, so that no matter what, there's that family love. There's that family togetherness, and and mainly it's a Black love, a Black family love. You know, So hopefully that comes through in the story.
Well, that was talking to in one of my interviews last week. I talked about characterization and static and dynamic characters, but this week, but and you bringing that up, stories can also be static and dynamic as well. And what I mean by, basically what I mean by a dynamic story is you have a story that's not linear. In other words, you have a good story, but you're putting elements in there that really makes me care about not only the characters, but the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, Zoe's not by herself. She's not an island.
Right.
She's she knows that she can't do this without help. And she's got her family in tow to help her. She got her friends in tow to help her. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was another thing I learned from Leslie Banks. In her stories, she always had a diverse group. She had like every ethnicity and every race coming together as one, working as one. And so it wasn't just, like you said, it wasn't just one person as an island. The main character, the heroine or whatever, depended on her group. And that's what I loved. I loved the idea that we're not alone in this world, and we need each other, even though we fight and bicker, there's one race against the other race, but there has to be some coming together. There has to be something that will bring us all together, you know. Now, not straying too far off the track.
Right.
When I was going to college, I was in California. I was at Berkeley, and I was coming up in the time of free love, hippie movement, and all of that. And I mean, it's probably hard for a lot of young people nowadays to even imagine that. But there was a time when everyone thought that we could make a change, that we could come together and change the norm, get some of these old guys out of the office and steal some new blood, you know. And and I worked with a large group. We had a group, we call it the Rainbow Coalition. We had everybody in it. We had Asians, we had Chicanos, we had white and black. Everybody was working together as one, you know, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I mean, yes, we were naive, thinking we could change the world, but it was beautiful though, just the thought and the feeling that you got, you know. And at that time, you could have gone to one end of the country to the other, and you would still feel that love, that connection, you know. And so when Miss Banks was instilling this into her stories, it brought back all these memories, it brought back all these feelings. And I wanted that in my stories. I wanted that to get us. I want people to, even if it's not happening, I want them to imagine it could happen. It could be that way, you know. So that's and that's basically how all my stories are. I mean, I've got some in the wings that I'm starting to put finalize. I start a lot of stories, I just don't finish them, But
Oh,
I
you're like the rest of us. Don't feel bad because that's what a lot of us do. So you're good.
so I'm starting to go back and try to finish some of the things I've started. But in all of them, there's that closeness. There's, like I said, there's not one person that's alone. You know, everybody likes the lone ranger. Everybody likes that lone person that conquers all, you know, but it's not always that way.
Right.
And it's a lonely existence, you know. So I try to, even if they don't want it, even if it's not um, part of the character's initial feelings, that others will come along to help them conquer whatever it is that they're trying to overcome. And I've got another bad. I, all my main characters are female. I am a firm believer that uh, of women empowerment. Uh, my first superhero, the first person who I thought could overcome everything and anything, was my mother.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, and it's weird, when you're a child, you don't really see it, but now, you know, we weren't a rich family by any means, but I was one of those kids that if I saw it on TV, I had to have it, and and my mother gave it to me. She spoiled me like that. If I wanted it, she saw that I got it. But it took me until I was a grown up to realize the sacrifices that she must have made to do this, you know. And I saw my mother stand up to racism. I saw her stand up to all kinds of evils in this world, you know. She was one of those people that never backed down. She never backed down from anything. And so, and that's what she taught us. But at the same time, she was always saying, never judge a book by its cover, you know, and like I said, look out for one another, make sure you protect one another. And so, like I said, she was my first superhero. So now I write these women who stand up to adversity, who are able to, no matter what the odds, they don't give up. They keep fighting. They keep going. And I like to think that it would uh, help other, like these younger girls coming up, to realize that they don't have to settle. They don't have to go with the flow, so to say. Just because something is popular at this point, or everybody is doing it, it doesn't hurt to be your own woman, be your own person.
How do you write strong women in a society that's misogynistic, that almost, even though they pretend not to, but a lot of times strong women get shut, especially strong black women.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a handicap. My handicap is that I'm a male, and I tend to think as a male. So, and I know, and I'll be honest, I know absolutely nothing about the way women think or anything like that. I have a lot of female friends, and coming up, I was the shoulder they all lean on, they all cried on. So I heard every relationship and every marriage. I heard all the things that went through it. And what I would do is I would think, well, what would I do to reverse that, to change that? But you still, I still find myself questioning my characters as, will a woman really think this way? Will a woman really act this way? Because being a man, you still fall into that male kind of way of thinking, a way of doing things, So what I do is that if I hear a controversy nowadays, I would try to think as a woman, how would I reverse that, or how would I deal with that? And it's hard. It's really hard, especially with. I didn't really grow up with knowing a lot of Black women. You know, like I say, moving around and everything, I was surrounded by almost everything but Black women. You know, it wasn't until I was out of school and in the workforce that I came across Black women, and they were so different from what I was used to. Uh, they were more outspoken. You know, and I noticed that if they are separated from their mates, they're stronger, and their minds, they speak their minds. I put it that way, um, because Black men still dominates. In a relationship, the idea of a woman being outspoken and stronger just doesn't get it, because basically when most men are products of their fathers, who are products of their fathers. So there's that same mentality that's being handed down from generation to generation. So it's like it's the woman that's changing and the man that's staying stationary, you know. So I try to go along with what the change of the time and the change of the thinking would be, and I work from there. But like I say, I'm still handicapped because I'm still handicapped because I'm still a male, so I'm still thinking like a man, and I'm thinking, well, as a man, if I was a woman, what would I do?
Right.
And not saying that it works, but um, I have had some female friends who wants me to write Black love stories. Uh, Again, I'm handicapped because one, I don't think I know that much about love, you know, uh, and to me, from the stories that I have read, it's all about dominating sex. It's like they're usually these women who likes to be dominated. When it comes down to the act, but outside of that, they want their to be taken seriously. Put it that way.
Right.
And to me, it's I can't fathom it. I like I said, it's hard enough to think as a woman, but then thinking as a Black woman nowadays, it's even harder. You know, so I just, like I said, I create my own character. I instill in her what I think a woman should be or how she should act, and then if I get, and I welcome reviews. I welcome uh, uh, anything that will help me with that character. I welcome it because, like I said, I don't know how they would think or how they would act in such a situation. So then I just, like I said, I create my own world, I create my own characters, and then let it go from there.
Well, I'll be totally honest with you. I believe if you did write, female romance, I think you would do well. Everything, fortunately, because I write romances. And there's not a lot of overwhelming sex in my romances, so there's a way you can do it without that element, and it will still be a good romance. And I believe you can do it.
Well, I'm very old fashioned when it comes to the heart. I'm very old fashioned. I grew up where, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, then boy gets girl again, and there's only so many ways you can put a spin on that.
True.
And I'm one of those people that think love can conquer all, and I'm constantly told that that's not how it is. That's not the way the world works, But books are escapism. You want to
Yeah.
you don't want to read how the world is. You want to read how you would like for it to be, So if I did a romance story, a romance novel, it would be what I think, a romance would be. I mean, I still believe in, bringing flowers and candy to a woman. I still believe in, you know, slow dancing and whispering sweet nothings in their ear. I still believe all of that. I don't think every relationship has to start off with a tumble in the bed. You know,
Right. I agree.
Yeah, I believe. I'm not saying that there's not a place for it, but let it build up to that. Let the relationship have some kind of foundation. You know, and that's what I well, a few that I've read, I see a lack in that. There's not that foundation. You know, uh, and uh, I'm not opposed to it. I just like to see some sense of feeling, some sense of love in the story, you know. And I'm a firm believer that if the relationship don't work out and they went somewhere else and it don't work out, that they can come back and you know and try again. You know, I believe in second chances. You
I'll tell you this, and I'll leave it alone for a second. For a second now, I'll leave it alone for a second. I got to move on anyway. But I personally feel that what you just said, we need to go back to, and you could be the person that brings us back to the old-fashioned romance. Because believe it or not, me and my wife's first date was church.
Good.
Basically, she invited me to a church for a service. That was our first date. Been together ever since.
Great. See, great. That's what I love to hear. So I love to hear things like that. It's you started out on a great foundation. You started out with not only coming together with the heart, but you came together on the spirit. You know, and somewhere along the way, somewhere down the road, we lost that. You know, and I would like to see it come back. I believe in a guy wooing a girl. Actually uh, uh, taking the time to pursue her, get to know her. Put some work in it. Put uh, you know, don't just automatically assume that it's going to be the way you think it's going to be. Work on it. Put some effort into it.
Right.
And um, that's what I don't see anymore. That's what I don't read anymore. So and that made me think that uh, my ideas of love and romance are just too old fashioned. You know, all right, maybe I'll go back to the colonial days. I'll make a story about a colonial love. You know, at least then it would be acceptable. But
Right.
today, you know, it's like everybody's too busy. The woman is too busy making a career. A man is too busy, you know, being a man, you know. Uh
Our
and
handicap.
exactly.
Exactly, Bill.
So basically there's no time for romance. And so it's always a, you know, an instant kind of relationship. Uh you know, a woman will come in from work and say, "Oh, you got 10 minutes. That's all I can give you. You got 10 minutes." You know, where's the romance? I mean, he's got dinner prepared for you, and you know, he's got the favorite movie out. You know, but you don't have time for it. You know,
Right.
so uh, and I think that's why so many couples nowadays feel like it's a waste of time getting involved. You know, because nobody had the time, or no one is willing to make the time. You know, so that's that is my problem with trying to do a romance story. You
Yeah. Well, like I say, I'm gonna leave it alone right now. I'm gonna get back on the subject. I was just kind of pushing out there just for a second.
know, okay.
Yeah. So this is why I love doing interviews. Because we can do that, get off topic, to get right back on topic. I love it. All right. So, well, my next question about Zoe. When does Zoe get released?
At the end of this month, I'm told, around the 30th, I believe it's going to be. Uh, I thought it was going to be this week, but what my editor was doing, she was putting a timetable on it for people to, you know, pre-order and things like that. But the actual release is going to be at the end of the month.
Uh, also, and that part out. Sorry, it's in my ear. Anyway, so next, so where will it be sold? Where can we buy it?
Amazon. It's going to be at Amazon. From what uh, I am, I have never put everything in my editor's hands. But she surprised me. I thought it was just going to be Amazon, but she also said it's going to be at Barnes and Noble,
Hmm.
um, and a few other places. I'll have to get back to you with. But she's working very hard on this. You know, I was just surprised that it was going to be somewhere other than Amazon. But it's I do know it's going to be Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and so which really I'm excited about. You know that.
Awesome. So how do you feel about Zoe coming out?
Um, to say I'm ecstatic would would be an understatement. I I never expected to explode like this. Um, I thought it would be like some little minor thing, like Kindle or something like that. But the minute that my editor showed me the cover, I just went I just went crazy, man. I said, this is going to be good. This is going to be a great story. I know it's going to sell, you know. So I'm more excited about that than I was about Black Tiger, you know. Uh, uh, but I am, like I told my editor, I'm not looking to be rich or like that, famous like that. I just like the idea of someone reading my story. I just like the idea of my story being out there and people are interested enough to read it. you know. And that's
Mm.
how all my stories will be. I create a world for you. I create my world for you to enjoy. And so that's how I approach every story that I do.
Yeah, I love that attitude. So my next question is, how will people how can people get to know you as an author? Because like I say, I just sat down with you and I enjoyed talking to you already. So but how can people, especially you're gonna get a lot of readers, a lot of good fans, how can people get to know you better?
Um, I was told to create a author page because like people don't know, at one time I was a blues singer. I was, I performed. Um, I used to live in Virginia, just
Hmm.
outside of Washington, D.C. And for like 17, 18 years, I was a blues singer. I was fairly popular. I got a nice little following. I even produced a CD, uh, but the place that that sold CDs went
See,
out of business.
then
So,
I need the CD. See, you didn't tell me all this in our initial conversation. I forgot to cheat it. Go ahead.
well, it seemed like so long ago that it it didn't matter, you know. But I'm proud of that time. I did. I had a nice following. I had a nice audience, um, and there was there's one incident I will never forget. I was performing in this place called, well, we regularly perform in this place called the Laughing Lizard Lounge,
Hmm.
uh, which was whenever somebody heard about it, they just loved the name of that place, you know. But I was doing this show. I was doing this particular night. It was sold out. It was packed, and I went outside to get some air. And this young man had his brother with him, this little brother, and I was talking with them for a little bit, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. He said, "I brought my brother by here, so I want him to see you. I want him to hear you." And he said, "All those people in there are mostly white, and they came to cheer you. They came to cheer you on." And he said, "I wanted my brother to see what a black man is capable of doing."
Hmm.
He said, "I am so proud of you, and I want my brother to know that there's other alternatives that he can have." And I had such a sense of pride that night that I think I performed extra hard that night, you know. But it to the idea of that I inspired somebody, made me feel good about myself, you know. And I had couples come up and said that, we met at your performance, and now we're married, and we still come to your performance. He says, that we would travel anywhere to see you. You know, and it's so different. It's kind of like my writing. I was standoffish until I got on that stage and the band fired up behind me. Then I became a whole different persona, you know. And it's like, and if you're watching people singing and dancing to you, it's a feeling that just can't be duplicated, you know. So like I said, for like 17, 18 years I did this. Um, I had a couple of reporters for the Washington Post. They would always come out to see me, and they would always write up about me. And in fact, when I put my CD out, they were the ones that called me and told me that I was nominated for a Whammy. And a Whammy was basically the East Coast version of the Grammy. And I was nominated as the first authentic group to come out in that area. And we were a very diverse group, but all during my years, I had did other people's songs. I did, Wilson Pickett and James Brown and Otis Redding and B.B. King and even the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. But when I wrote my own songs and did my own music, that's when we decided to do the CD. And because it was so different, the CD was so different, I was given praise for it. And so that was another landmark for me to do something like that. And it's if I ever do my memoirs, I'm gonna have to put that in there, because it was an incredible time, So like I said, if I have a author page, I will put that in there. I'll put in there, where I was born and raised, which was a little backwater town outside of Jacksonville, Florida. And it was at a time when segregation was at the top. It was at, the height of its time. And the little town was so small, it only had one paved road. It went down the middle of the street, I mean, the middle of the town, I'm sorry. And it was one of those tar roads, that in the summer it got so hot you couldn't even walk on it bare feet,
Right. Oh, wow.
And my grandfather was he was a pastor of one of, I think, only had 2 or 3 churches in the entire town. And he was a very famous preacher.
Hold on one second. Keep going. My life just failed, but keep going.
Okay. Yeah, my grandfather was a preacher. He's one of those traveling preachers. He did all of the evangelist shows, these tent, what used to call them tent churches, where all the churches would meet and all the choirs would be there singing, and he was always the star preacher there. And so I grew up in that church, and I taught Sunday school, believe it or not. I taught Sunday school with 2 the other children, and I was in the choir, which I think I got my music life from. And so like I said, it was a segregated town. It was a town where my mother would take us into the main part of the town, which was all white. She would take us every other weekend, and she would take us to get hamburgers and cherry cokes, which was a big treat for me and my brother, And we would go into I think it was Woolworth. I think that was what it was. It was Woolworth. And they had one of these huge counters. And the counter was almost as long as the store itself. But at the end of the counter, they had like 4 seats, and that's where only the colored folks could sit. All the other stools would be different, But those four seats, I mean, all the others, the stools would be empty, but we were only allowed to those four seats at the end. You know, they
Mm.
even had it marked off colored only. You know, and you know, as a kid, you know, it didn't mean anything to me because I was just happy being out with my mother. You know, getting hamburgers and cherry coke. You know, but I do remember, you know, they had you would pass, you know, you walk down the main street and they had the fountains where, you know, it had, you know, marked on there clearly for colors only. And everything was marked for colored only. You know, they had one movie theater and black folks were only allowed in the balcony. They couldn't go into the main theater. Uh, and again, you know, as a kid, I paid, you know, just the idea of going to the movies was a big thing for me. And so my every science fiction movie that came out, my mother would take me to, and it only cost a dime, believe it or not.
I need to be going with y'all. I would have loved that time.
It was great. It was great. My mother, I don't even know how to describe my mother. She's another person that's so diverse. She believed in reading. She believed the greatest education a person could get was to read, and she would always say, "Read or look it up," you know. And she never finished high school, but you wouldn't know it to talk to her. My mother believed in she didn't believe in jive talking and stuff like that. She was very, you know, very articulate. So a lot of people thought that she was college graduate, you know. And I will never forget. And we when we moved to California, and we were in this on this base called Alameda, that was right across from San Francisco, and the the chief, the captain of the base came over. You know, they had a big welcome wagon for us. Like I said, we were the only black couple, only black family on the base. You know, so the captain came over. You know, he had all these people with them, and had a very you know, the welcome wagon, and and he made this big speech about, you know, having met my mother and how she was so college educated, and you know, he really loved talking with her and stuff like that. And my mother would look at me and she would just chuckle, you know, and she would say, if they only knew that I never went further than the seventh grade. You know, it was it was, you know, I was always proud of her because no matter where she went, she was a presence. You know, she would walk into a place and people would just gravitate towards her, you know, and she just carried herself so majestically, you know, even before it became, black women were queens and stuff like that. Mother was always like that, you know. So I mean, so like I said, my mother's main thing was reading, education, and she didn't care if it was comic books or encyclopedias, as long as you read. So of course, I've had an incredible comic book stash, you know. But I would sit down in front of the TV and I would just read comic after comic, you know. And if I came across a word I didn't understand, my mother would say, "Look it up," you know. And then she would have me enunciate it and then give her the meaning of it, you know. Yeah, she was incredible. She was an incredible woman, and and I owe everything to her. You know, she was talented. Uh, even she had an incredible voice. She was an artist, and she used to take her mascara uh, and and when I wanted to play Superman, she would draw the emblem exactly like it was on the TV, you know. And all the kids used to all the kids wanted theirs done by my mother because she would do it exactly like it was supposed to, you know, like it was on the TV, you know. And she was like, and I think that's where I got my artistic talents from, because believe it or not, before I sang, I was an artist. I drew, I painted watercolors and charcoal. I wanted to be a comic book artist, and that was my goal from oh God, I think from 6 years old on. And but my thing was, I even wrote to Stan Lee, even sent him some samples to Stan Lee.
Wow.
And he said he loved my work, but all my work was just copies of his characters he already had, you know. Mm-hmm. But he told me, you know, he encouraged me. He told me to keep trying. He told me to keep trying. But I went to college and I went for an art degree. But when I got in college, it was such a different life, man. That my first semester, I don't think I went to class one. I was so busy basically chasing women, I guess I should say. I was just but it was it was so different, you know. Everybody was so carefree and so, you know, it was a different world from like high school, you know. And so I would get so caught up in you know, we had all these little groups, you know, they had these hippie groups. And at the time, Black Power was coming into being, and so we had the Black Power group, and then, you know, we had the Latin group. You know, there were just so many places for my attention to be divided. You know, and so it was that like I said, that first semester was just totally wasted. You know, and my dad told me, you know, I had to get back on the stick. You know, if I'm gonna stay in college. And imagine this. Imagine this. At that time in California, if you were a resident for more than 4 years, you went to college free.
Oh, wow.
All you had to pay for were your books.
Oh, okay.
And see, I had it made because not only was I was going to college for free, but the military was paying for my books.
Oh, see?
and, and see, as long as I kept my grades up, you know, they pay for everything that I needed. But then, you know, like all good things, Ronald Reagan came into office.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was the governor, and he decided that college was no longer going to be free. You know, whether you're a resident or from out of state, it doesn't going to be free anymore. You know, and a lot of people dropped out. A lot of people said, you know, this is not for me. And I was one of them. I said, no, you know, I went out and got into the workforce, and at the time, for somebody who was 19 and 20 years old, I was making more money than I thought I could ever spend. You know, so what I need college for? You know, I was making money. I was making money hand over fist. You know, so I left, and my parents had already left. They were in D.C. My dad was working for Nixon. He was on Nixon's photo staff. He was one of the
Wow.
main photographers for Nixon. So that was great. That was good. But while he was there in D.C., the draft was really taking off. Then they were drafting people left and right, and I was one of those gung ho guys. I was going to join, and we were going, and we had this recruiter come to the school, and he promised us that we can go in the buddy system.
So with everything, number one, I'm just gonna put this out there. See, you keep giving me ideas for books you can write. You need to write about your memoirs, man. You need to put some of your memoirs, especially about your mother. That was all beautiful. You need to put that out there.
I would love to write about her.
I mean, just spitballing, just letting you know that something kind of pushing your way. So it's all good. So what's in the future for what's in the future? Any more stories you got coming up or any more projects you're working on?
I have um, I have two finished stories sitting in the wings, and I have about three that I need to finish up on. I would like to, after Zoe is out, and depending on how well it's done, I like to immediately follow up with another story.
Okay. So with that, I forget what I was saying. So I know you don't have a website yet, but how can people talk to you? How can people interact with you?
Well, I don't know what's proper. If they can contact me on Facebook and Messenger. I don't really have an author website. I need to talk to my editor and see if she can create one for me. I would love to have readers to interact with me that way.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So now, here's the part of the show. I know we've been talking about the whole time, but I always give my authors the final word. You can give dedications, you give shout outs, you can give advice, anything that you want to say, the floor is yours.
Oh, wow. Well, shout outs to my family who are very supportive, uh, to my mother, you know, heavenly blessings to her. There are too many authors who have supported me and given me ideas and uh, and I would like to. They know who they are. I would like to tell them thanks, mostly to my editor, Aurora Grace Edium. Like I said, she created miracles for me. I am so happy with the product of Zoe, and I hope we can continue working well together. And for other artists who doubt themselves or who are just sitting on projects, all I can say is put it out there. It took me a while for me to do it, but put it out there and sink or swim. You need to know, and a lot of times you'd be surprised at the feedback you would get. So I support every author, no matter what their genre are. I support them all and wish them all the best.
And when we come back, 8 Thieves, 2 Cents.
What if you had a family member that was starting to lose their memory? What if someone you know had to have a caregiver come in? What if you were temporarily disabled by a car accident, stroke, or surgery? Would you still want to have a voice and remain in control, keeping your life and your business running smoothly? The Living Legacy Planner is what you need. Document your living instructions. Do it now. Make a plan to plan with the Living Legacy Planner. It's available right now on Amazon.
Welcome to AC's 2 Cents, again brought to you by Senior and Living Today. Today's episode, I want to talk to you about not writing per se, not what sparks your writing. I want to talk to you about what stops you from writing. I wanted to admit, in the middle of my writing career, I've allowed a few people to get in my head as to what I'm writing, what I should be writing, what I shouldn't be writing. When in reality, my readers love what I write. People that read what I write love me. And I let people say, well, you should be writing this, or you shouldn't be writing that, or you should be writing like this, you should be writing like that. I learned that lesson. I kind of learned that lesson the hard way. It almost cost me my writing career, and I'll get into that one day later, but I sort of almost lost it all because of listening to naysayers. In the beginning, I didn't listen. I didn't listen. I don't know what happened to me now. When I mean in the beginning, I actually had someone tell me in the beginning, fiction writing was a bad move for a black man. Well, several books later, it turned out to be less of a bad move, but I digress. My issue is, I hear this from authors all the time as well. They'll have somebody get in their head. Even Miss Davis even said someone got in her head and made her kind of shelve her books for a second until she got blessed with people around her that loved her and cared for her enough to say, hey, what are you doing? That's sort of what happened with me. There's blessed people in my life that says, no, we're not going to do this. You're not. In fact, you are the writer. Who's going to tell you how to write your stuff? When they get out there and write their own stuff, they can write however they want to. And these aren't even authors. These aren't even people in the writing community. These are people outside who don't know anything about being an author, being in the literary community, or anything. So now I'm not going to use the word insignificant, but in that point, it is kind of insignificant to let someone outside of your world tell you how to conduct yourself in your world. I can't walk into a hospital, into an operating room, and tell the doctor you should operate like that. I don't know a damn thing about operations. I can't walk onto a battlefield and tell a soldier, hey man, you holding that gun wrong. Look, bottom line is this. If you love what you do it. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do and what you're doing is wrong. And they don't know two shits about what you're doing. Well, as AC 2 Cents, sponsored by Senior and Living Today, I'm AC Campbell. And when we come back, we'll wrap up the show.
Do you feel like a relative might be starting to forget things? Well, this is the time to write down everything that is important to them. What if they were temporarily disabled by an accident, stroke, or surgery? At some point, a caregiver may need to come in. Would you want them to have a voice and remain in control while providing them with their likes and wishes? The The Living Legacy Planner is what you need. Document their instructions, do it now, make a plan to plan with the Living Legacy Planner. It's available right now on Amazon.
Another word about the Living Legacy Planner. It's also good for end-of-life decisions. You know, and I know a lot of people don't like talking about death when it's time, and I'm one of those people, but sometimes we do have to discuss it. There may be things like I may want to be cremated instead of have a funeral. I may want a small gathering. I may, there's certain things I want to go to certain people. There's certain people I would rather have at my funeral. The Living Legacy Planner plans for everything. And I suggest anyone who's 50 and older get one, please. The book is only $24.97 hardcover on Amazon. I'll have the link out on my HD television page, as well as more information about the book. So, but again, thank you for our new sponsor, Senior Living Today. You hear me tease a lot more. I'll be talking about more. In fact, I'm going to get into more about different topics of Senior Living Today throughout my weekly gripes, my artist corner, my author's corner, and any other broadcasts that I have. So thank you again, Ms. Jones. Now, we won't have a show next week. I need to actually get some more interviews together. But in the meantime, I'm not going to forget about you. I may more than likely do a classic interview next week, but we'll see. I'll let you know. But until then, thank you for making the Office Corner one of the best shows around. Peace. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit, and God bless you.